Welcome in to a very special episode of the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I am joined by the one and only Pizza Man, Brayton Laster. He is joining the Racing Report in a special episode today. He was recently in the ARCA race at Daytona a couple weeks ago, and he's the driver of is it number 0, Wayne Peterson, or are you on number 06 now?
We kind of go back and forth a little bit throughout the season. We went down to Daytona, we were the number 0, but I think for the final 19 or so races of the season, we should be in the number 06.
All right. Good deal. All right. So I got a couple of questions for you, Brayton. We're going to go ahead and just jump right on into it because we got a little bit of time here on our hands. So I guess the question I'll ask first is how did you get your start in racing?
Yeah, for me, it's a very much a family connection. Obviously, Indianapolis is, a big motorsports area, and my dad grew up going out to, Indianapolis Motor Speedway there and going to the speed run on the east side, the short track, and kind of grew up around racing. His dad would always take him to watch the races, and then around the 80s and the 90s, he kind of started working on the cars, and then the late 90s, he started buying cars for himself or for others to race, but he would own them. And then, when I was born pretty much in 2002, I always grew up around the racetrack. I loved going to the racetrack to support my dad and watch my dad and help out my dad. And I was kind of, I was a middle child, and I was the only one that only really liked the racing, it seemed. And, so always going out to the track and hanging out with my dad, that was always a pretty cool moment. And then, once I got old enough, about 7, 8 years old, we got our first go-kart, and we started racing it out there on the east side at the Indianapolis Speedrome, flat fifth mile. And they have a kid go-kart class called the Junior Fast Karts. And that's a great place for a lot of kiddos to go and get their start in racing. And that's what I did, and ran that for a couple years, and ran all kinds of different series out there. Kind of moved up the ranks, and then eventually in 2022, after years and years and years of hard work, got an opportunity I never thought that I would get, and got to make my ARCA Menards Series debut back in 2022 at Daytona.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. You talk about your ARCA Menards deal and getting to be able to run at Daytona. Uh, it, how do those deals come together? Because a lot of people, they hear about, oh, racing deals. One person is putting these deals together, or sometimes it takes a whole ton of sponsors. How, for you specifically, do some of those deals come together?
Yeah, so I have to work for it a lot harder, I feel like, than some drivers. And everyone works hard at this level. When you get to the professional, the NASCAR level, and which that's what ARCA is for those that aren't familiar. It's a NASCAR touring division, and we race all across the country, and we're going at speeds of 180, 190 miles an hour. But to go and compete at this level, it takes, first off, a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort. And for some drivers, it's a family thing where they can kind of go say, "Hey, Dad, hey, Mom, I need $4.5 million to go drive a race car," and I obviously don't have that luxury, whatnot. So I do all my own marketing. I do all my own sponsorship deals. I work social media pretty frequently as far as growing my brand and growing my image, and in turn growing the amount of eyes that my sponsors receive on their products and their websites. And it's very much I'm all in for the marketing thing. I don't have a team that helps me do it. I don't have people that are sitting here making phone calls and sending emails out for me. It's just me, myself, and I. And like, I'll have people help me make graphics and stuff like that. But I'm out here, sending the cold calls, doing the emailing, doing the social media posts. And I think a lot of people respect that, because there's a lot of drivers that do their own marketing at this level. There's a lot of drivers that have a lot of help too. And like I said, it takes a village sometimes to get on track. For Daytona, for example, while most drivers, most teams have 4 or 5 sponsors for one race, I had 90 different sponsors at Daytona to make it happen. And that's what it takes to get down there and to compete at that level.
Yeah. So this is a great segue here into my next question. You talk about, doing your own social media and stuff. You're known as the Pizza Man. How did that come to be? Why did people call you the Pizza Man?
So for those that are watching this and they went to middle school with me, they'll probably chuckle, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's just a gimmick. Oh, it's just kind of his brand, and that's his thing. It's a racing thing." And I'll tell you, I went to Greenwood Middle School and I was wearing the pepperoni pizza hoodie every single day. It could be, late August and be 75 degrees outside. I'm waiting for my mom to pick me up, and I'm over here sweating my butt off wearing pepperoni pizza hoodies because I really, really like the hoodie. It probably stank horribly to you. I'm surprised nobody told me about that. But I had a pizza backpack, and that really all started from going out at the speed room. My dad would give me, $20 and say, "Hey, go to concession stand and get him a cheeseburger and get me whatever I'd want." And I'd always get me some pizza. So that at the racetrack, people call me the pizza kid, and then someone bought me the hoodie, and then going to school with a hoodie and then a backpack and everything. Yeah, I had shoes, I had pants, and I had a t-shirt, I had pepperoni pizza underwear, I had socks, I had shoes, multiple pairs of shoes, and then hats. And that's kind of blew up as the pizza kid. That was my thing in middle school, and then all throughout high school too. I was also the pizza kid. And then when I turned 16, my parents got me my first ever like custom helmet, and it was a pepperoni pizza themed helmet. And so it was at that point when it really blew up for the racing side of things. Like, yeah, people called me that. I had a couple other nicknames like the Master of Disaster, Brayton Laster. That was pretty cool. But the pizza thing really, really took off. And then I never really thought anything of it as far as branding and whatnot, but I kind of made that my social media handle when I first got social media, like Snapchat. I'm like, oh, it's the Pizza Kid, and Instagram is the one, only the Pizza Kid, and I was mainly for like people at school, and then people kind of started following the racing thing, and TikTok, there in 2019, 2020, I was very early to the racing scene, and I was posting content all the time, GoPro content, kind of race day vlogs, updates, and blew up on TikTok a lot. And then when I got to the ARCA level, obviously people love the pizza thing, people love a driver with a personality and something they can relate to. Not only do I go out here, I work hard and I make it happen. I don't have, $4.5 million, waiting for me from, a family member. So people kind of respect that. They see, what I have to do to get to the track, but then also the pizza thing is very relatable. People love to kind of sit there and like, oh, that's cool. I know pizza. I've ate pizza before, so they can relate to it that way. And I said, this past week I got a lot of flack on social media because some guy called me a gimmick driver and saying, oh, you're not serious about racing. And like, yeah, I'm serious on the track, obviously, but I'm gonna go out here and have fun and show my personality, because I'm not gonna be a brick wall of a driver and not really show fans at home who I am. Drivers, they have an at track personality, they have an at home personality. Well, they get Brayton Laster. It's Brayton Laster. There is no at track Brayton Laster.
And that's a good thing, I would say, because I think a lot of race fans like a driver with a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
personality in them, and I think that that's a really good kind of philosophy to have. So I guess that brings me then into my next question. You talked about earlier racing at Daytona and having all of those sponsors come on board. What is that feeling like when you're going out there and you're racing at Daytona? You're representing all of these different brands, sponsors, people, organizations, what have you, you know, and then when the green flag drops and you go in, you see that the banking, is there anything like can prepare you that, or is it like radically different from practice to the race? What's kind of that like?
You really get the nerves when you first drive to the track. When you get outside the track, for those that haven't been down there, it's kind of like driving around IMS. You see how big it is and how monstrous it is. And Daytona is an extra. It's the no, I think they're about the same size, half mile maybe. Is IMS 2.5 miles? Is IMS 2.5? Okay, so they're the
Yeah.
same size. But I think Daytona has a lot more like parking spots around it, and the overall atmosphere there around the track too. They built the city, it seemed, around the racetrack. They're kind of did IMS, but the grandstands are huge, and they cover up the entire area right there by the main street. So if you drive around the track, there's like like this place is huge. And then you go to the infield and you have to drive under the track, and there's a tunnel there. And on the tunnel, they have all these murals painted of these historic moments that have happened at the track. All these photo finishes and all the fights and moments that really defined NASCAR and defined the track. And I'm sitting there driving through the tunnel every day and to get to the track, and I'm like, hey, I'm competing at a track where all this really, really cool stuff happened. And we're competing down there Daytona 500 weekend. This is one of the biggest weekends in racing. This is the Super Bowl of racing right here this weekend. And, going down there, it's always a big moment every time we get an opportunity to compete. And, for ARCA, we had to qualify in. And we were very much an underdog story, very Cinderella-esque story. We're a very small team, one of probably the smallest teams in the garage area. So, when we made the show because it rained out, we were beyond excited. We were emotional. We were crying. We were clapping. We were hugging, and that's what it means to us. I think a lot of drivers, they kind of get used to going down there and they're like, oh, it's just Daytona. They don't really see what goes into everything that it takes to get there. So they just kind of show up and drive. But I really understand how much the team has to work to get the cars ready. And let's say, for example, Daytona race didn't go quite our way. We got a little bit of damage. I woke up at 5 o'clock yesterday, one of the only days this week I had off from work. Woke up at 5 o'clock, went down to the team shop in Tennessee, and stayed until about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I got home this morning at 5 o'clock, and then here at work right now, and at 2:30, a couple hours later. So it's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of dedication. And as far as getting the race there is a moment. That was my third time racing there, and it's just as emotional as the first time.
Yeah, and to think about all of the drivers, like you said, who have come through and driven, you've made up fields that, like last week, you were in the same field as Elio Castro-Neves, a
Yes.
four-time Indy 500 winner. You were in 23. You shared a field with Frankie Muniz of Malcolm in the Middle. What's that feeling like to just know that I shared a track with some of these great people and drivers?
uh, you talk about when you're meeting your heroes, and it's one thing going to get to meet your heroes. It's another one to get to compete against your heroes. It's kind of like Cars, Cars 3 when the rookie Jackson Storm comes, and it's like, hey, it's nice to beat you, McQueen. And McQueen's like, you say nice to meet you or nice to beat you? And kind of like that same moment when you're sitting here getting to compete against guys like Helio and guys like Frankie Muniz, and the the aura, I guess, they bring to the table is just surreal. And obviously growing up around Indy, the Indy 500 is a big deal to me. I'd love to get to compete out there, and I'd probably never be able to compete against Helio, because he's probably going, be done as far as racing goes. I'd imagine by the time I get up to that level, if I ever do, but to get to compete against him, on his first ever time at Daytona, that's a special moment that I'm going to tell people for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I'm sure. I mean, that had to have been probably one of the coolest things. And you talk about growing up around in here in Indianapolis and the Greenwood area and things like that. You know, um, you've also run the ARCA races down here at IRP in Brownsburg. You know, what is that like, especially going from the speedrome all the way up there on the east side, working your way basically up through the ring and start, as concessions and everything, you know, what is that like when were you able to go and race there after you'd already run Daytona?
Yeah, talking about getting to compete in front of your hometown crowd, getting to compete in any NASCAR weekend. I'd love to go run in the Brickyard one day, obviously, but the ARCA race at IRP is just as cool for me. And I remember in 2023, I didn't have a ride lined up for Raceway Park, and I was very bummed. I was very disappointed, and I was kind of at a weird point in my career where I lost my ride after Daytona in 2023 with it was a really cool opportunity, a really neat moment. And I wouldn't have changed anything that I'd done. It got my start in the career, and as far as the ARCA goes with that team, I'm very thankful for them because of that. But I was kind of at a weird point though where I don't say I was team hopping, but basically whenever a team would need a driver, they'd call me up and say, hey Brayton, we need to come out here and drive a race car for us because they need someone that can bring the car in one piece. You don't tear the race car up and they get a good finish. And that was kind of my role in the ARCA series there for a couple of years. And it was the week of the race. That Monday, I was like, I was really bummed out. I was like, man, I really wanted to find a ride for this weekend, and talking with the sponsors and everything that goes into getting a ride for anything at this caliber. It just the fruit didn't fall the right direction. The pizza wasn't sauced right, and we weren't able to really put a deal together. And that Monday, I get a call from Andy Hillenberg, who's from Indianapolis, and he owns Fast Track Racing down there in North Carolina. They're a full-time ARCA operation. And he's a team that a lot of the time I'd get the call saying, "Hey, we need to come out here and drive this race car." So like Kansas, Iowa, Nashville Fairgrounds. I even got the call last year in 2024 to go out to Phoenix, on a Monday. They said, "Hey, we need to do Phoenix, Thursday night." I was like, "Oh, that's a long drive," and so I drove out to Phoenix, on a moment's notice. But going out there to IRP, getting that call saying, "Hey, we need you out here at Raceway Park. Can you make it?" I'm like, "Can't make it. I live down the street. Of course I can make it." So that was a really, really cool moment for me to get out there and compete from the hometown crowd. Didn't quite get the run we won. I think something broke 40, 50 laps into the run, but you know, going and getting to meet all the fans there, because I walked through the grandstands quite a bit, and the people that were from the speed room there cheering me on. People from Brownstown competed down at Brownstown a lot, competed at Circle City, the dirt track on the east side a lot. Having all of these fans and friends and family and sponsors out there, it was a really full circle moment. And when they're doing the driver lineup, and you're sitting there standing by the car, and you're like, "Hey, rolling off 17th from Greenwood, Indiana, the driver of the 01 Cyberfox Chevrolet, Brayton Laster," and the fans start going crazy. And you're right there, 30, 40 feet away from them. And it's like you really hear everything and everyone. And I think I probably had one of the loudest, applauses out there. A lot of people knew our story. And then I got to compete there last year as well in 2024 for Wayne Peterson. That was my very first race with Wayne Peterson. Kind of that race is what led to the full-time opportunity that I have now with Wayne Peterson Motorsport. So that was a pretty cool moment. And then obviously planning ahead for 2025. I don't want to go into too many details, but we are packing the house in 2025. We are partnering up with a very, very big company out of Indianapolis. That their roots are deep in Indianapolis history and heritage, and they're probably going to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people out in the grandstands there at Raceway Park wearing Brayton Laster t-shirts and whatnot. So we will have the Brayton Laster fan club very much live at Raceway Park.
I love hearing that. That's really cool. Especially talking about, the future and everything like that. You talked about earlier, you wanted to maybe race the Indy 500 someday, race the Brickyard 400. Let's think, 10, 15 years down the line. What are some of your goals for the future of your racing career? Would you be okay, just making a living doing ARCA and things like that, or would you really want to push yourself there to get to that next level, get to the trucks, get to the Xfinity, maybe even do Indy next or something and run over to do IndyCar? What does that kind of pathway look like?
I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, and trying to kind of figure out my path from here. This is my fourth season in ARCA, my first full-time season. I ran part-times from 2022 to 2024, and kind of getting ready for this opportunity. I wanted to make sure if I did a full-time season in ARCA that I was prepared for it. Running 16 races the past couple of years, when this opportunity presented itself, I was kind of like, "Hey, this is a good moment to go out here and try and chase a dream." And I still work, I still have a day job, throughout the week here in Indianapolis, and racing. Yeah, I make some money from that here and there, not enough to really live comfortably. I don't have a mansion in Beverly Hills yet. I love to, knock on wood, but obviously, I want to move up through the ranks. And whether it's going out here and getting a deal with Chevy or Toyota or Ford and your manufacturer contract and driver development deal, or going out here and getting a sponsorship to make it happen and go out here and live my life and live my dream that way. That's probably the easiest and the best way to do it. I'd be content with staying in ARCA for the next 25, 30 years and just kind of make a name for myself. There's a lot of drivers that have done that. Frank Kimmel was in ARCA for years. Kimmel was down there from Southern Indiana. I mean, Kimmel, I think, is like a 10-time ARCA champ, made his living racing ARCA. And, being involved in racing, I don't necessarily have to be a driver to be happy. I love just working on the cars. And that's one thing, too, is not a lot of drivers at this level are quite hands-on. They can give you good feedback about the car and whatnot, but they're not down in the garage where they getting their hands dirty. That generation is few and far between nowadays. And like I said, I was down there yesterday for almost 20 hours working on the car. I sit there and I 3D print parts and I design parts, and I'll kind of do simulations for them and do everything that I have to do as a driver on top, and help them get the car ready. So at the end of the day, to make a long answer shorter than it probably, or make a short answer longer than it probably needed to be, I'm okay where I'm at, but if I can move up, that'd be really, really cool. I never thought, not to add on to that, but I never thought I'd make it to this level to begin with. I was expected to be racing at the speed room for my entire career, or Brownstown, or just running dirt late models wherever, Richmond, Kentucky, and travel down there to race. I just loved racing. To get to compete at this level where I actually kind of make a little bit of money off of it and get to compete on national television. Like I don't know how long this journey is going to last. In 10 years, I'd love to be competing in the Daytona 500, and I think it's a possible route, but we have to just kind of wait and see.
Yeah, hey, that's a great way to look about it. And as we start to kind of wrap up this little interview real quick, I want to bring it back home to a little bit, talking about Indianapolis, talking about the things here. I have to ask the one pizza man, what is the best slice of pizza in Indianapolis?
I, oh man, so it really depends, I guess, on what side of town you're on. If you go, I love going to Mozzie's out east, there in Greenfield. Kind of more locally, Pizza King a little bit. Well, not locally, but I guess if you go to Pizza King, the phone the King, not the other one. Um, or New York Slice in Greenwood, I think is probably the best go-to slice as far as a local pizzeria goes. I mean, it is hard to go out there and compete with a good New York style pizza. Luminati's, always was a fan of Luminati's, which they're closing their indie locations literally in a week and a half. I was heartbroken to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of other people, especially I was working with, were heartbroken to hear that. But hey, it's good to know that we have some recommendations for a slice of pizza from the One Pizza Man. Thank you so much, Brayton, for joining us here today on the Racing Report. Where could people find you on social media?
Yeah, so the biggest way to find me, the easiest thing to look up is just my name, BraytonLaster.com. You can kind of see the spelling there. But as far as social media goes, I have a Facebook that's at Brayton Laster and Brayton Laster Motorsports. We have two pages there, a personal kind of page and then a team page for our normal run locally. Instagram at Brayton Laster, TikTok is at Brayton Laster, and then TikTok is at the One Pizza Man. But website is where I post all my press releases. I have my schedule there. We have our results. We have media stuff. So that's probably the best way to go out there and kind of find me as far as that goes. And then for anybody locally, Lucas Oil, Indianapolis Raceway Park, July 25th. So we will be out there driving the number 06 Brayton Peterson Motorsports. And I would love to pack the house for that one.
And is there any way that anybody watching, if they wanted to maybe support your racing career, is there a way that they could do that?
Yeah, of course. We do a lot of smaller sponsorships working with mom and pop shop style companies for $100. You can get a logo on the race car, a picture on the race car, and I've had pictures of pets, of dogs, of Roblox characters, of some guy built in Minecraft, and small logos and YouTube channels. So the easiest way to do that, like I said, $100 gets you on the NASCAR on national television, but reach out to me on any of those social media channels or just blastermotorsports@gmail.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brayton Laster, driver of the number 0 or 01, Wayne Peterson Motorsports car in the ARCA Menards Series. Be sure to watch him coming up here in July at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park, where he says he will be. So thank you again so much for watching this episode of the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. You could find me on social media at rpeeters33. That's RPEETERS 33. We'll be back next week for another standard episode of the Racing Report. But again, we want to thank Brayton Laster for joining us today, and we will see you all next time.